since it's 6:30, a little bit after 6:30. So thanks everybody for coming tonight, and we're gonna just jump right in with we can probably do some quick introductions and just say who you are and where you're tuning in from, and then Eric will jump right in and do his deal. So anybody jump in and start us out? Feel free.
Oh, Mike, you need to turn your mic on.
I get a.
How's that? Am I better?
There you are.
Yeah. All right. Sorry about that, folks. I'll continue talking then. Michael Greiner. I've met several of you, I think, at the Black Hill Shootout stuff before. And Eric, Doug, and I were with you the night we did the Milky Way.
Yep. Awesome.
Last year. Since we met, I've moved to Eden Prairie, Minnesota, to be closer to medical treatment for my wife. But we figured we'd throw in our towel and see if we can learn some more about Astro. Not Astro as much as night photography and Milky Way, stuff like that.
Yep. Awesome.
Well, I'm sorry, there was another Michael. I hope I didn't cut you off. I see he's muted.
Well, that's what I'm wondering, if that was the Michael that I was looking for. Michael, is it Lapidus? Is that who just checked in there?
Yeah, Michael Lapidus.
Lapidus, okay. There.
Yeah.
Because I knew Michael Greiner, and I'm like, something was confusing me as to, like, that's quite right. Yeah, okay, so you want to just go ahead since you're talking already? Just we're just saying who we are and where we're tuning in from and that kind of thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, my name is Michael Lapidus. I'm in the Chicago area in Lake Forest, Illinois, and looking forward to the workshop.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Well, Jay, one of the ways maybe to do it, I can see the participants here, so maybe let's just go down the list. So David next on the list. David, where are you from?
Okay, I'm from a little town in North Carolina called Taylorsville. I grew up in New England. I would call myself a slightly better than average photographer. I like aviation and astrophotography. I'm still learning both. I'm an Eric fanboy and a Kelby One fanboy, and a shill for them both. So keep sending people your way. So
awesome. Well,
but yeah, I'm still trying to learn everything, and I have a new camera that I'm still trying to go out. I can't get out as much as I'd like, but when I go out, I can't find anything decent to shoot half the time. At least that tricks my eyes, and so I'm still trying to train my eyes to find that picture in the picture. This is for better lack of a term. So even though I've been shooting for a while, I still just want to get better and better and keep going.
Got to keep
awesome.
going.
Yeah.
There you go. Well, what about who's next on the list? Here we go. Yeah, Doug Conrad.
Hello, everybody. I'm Doug Conrad. I'm from Sioux City, Iowa, and I thought this was going to be a pretty unique opportunity for me to get out and do some night sky photography. We don't have a lot of, in our area, we got a lot of light pollution. There's really not a good area to go to get some good Milky Way and shots like that. So thought this was a pretty good opportunity to be able to get some decent shots, hopefully, and go from there.
Awesome. Well, yeah, this is definitely, it'll be great because this is a dark sky haven that we'll be going into. It's not as dark as humanly possible, but it is dark. It is that Portal 2 area, which is kind of that. One is like you got to really seek out ones. Like when I'm in ones, I'm really pushing it to the limit of wilderness. So it's for this. It's a great place. But to kind of play on what you're saying, you're in Iowa. I would dream to be in Iowa because I'm in Florida and we have light pollution like nobody's business. So yeah, I would love to live in Iowa. Because
Yeah.
2 hours, and I bet you could be in dark 30.
Well, yeah, it's hard. I don't know. It's not easy to find actually, but there is an
Well,
area that I haven't
you're
been to.
gonna during this week you're gonna figure it out, because we're gonna go over all that stuff,
Oh,
and you'll be
good.
able to find out how to position yourself even in certain areas. Like I live in a very light polluted area, and if I show you the pictures I get from Florida, people will be amazed. And part of it is just knowing how to work with light pollution, which we'll
Okay.
go over.
That'll
So,
be awesome. Yeah.
all right. Let's see who's next. So I don't know this name, but there's a username that says G2 G3T3R3. Somebody
Oh.
is that.
That's me, Greg Rutter.
All right, there you go.
Yep. So I live in Minnesota. I'm in Deerwood, Minnesota, central Minnesota, and I was planning on making a trip to the Badlands and Devil's Tower this summer anyhow. And then I heard about this workshop, and it's like, wow. And I've also been really interested in learning about Astro photography, and so the two things just came together like magic. So I'm super excited to learn everything I can.
Awesome. Very cool. And I love the background behind you. I love the pictures. That's awesome. All right. And then let's see, Marty.
All right, that's me.
All right, Marty.
Do you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Live closest to Falls, South Dakota. Charlotte and I will be coming out together. She's out in Oregon having a great time. Did some Milky Way when we were out for the shootout, and then I also went up to Grand Ray to Brian Hensel last August and did some Milky Way. So kind of fell in love with Milky Way.
Yeah, it does do that to you. Watch out. All right, and then Nelson. Nelson.
He I'm not sure if his mic.
Oh yeah, it says Mike might be recording, but
He
well,
typed-
actually I've got Nelson's stuff.
He put a little message in the stuff here, that he is from McAllen, Texas, and
Yep.
he got this hobby, and I cannot wait to shoot Milky Way and astrophotography.
Awesome. Very cool. And then I've got two Michaels on the list. Did we get to both Michaels?
Yep.
Yes.
We started with the Michaels.
All right.
So I had to
Awesome.
mix it.
Well, I think that's what we've got so that's what we got everybody. I think looking at the group, a couple things looking at it, 'cause I just like to look at like where we're at. It seems like all of us are at a point where a lot of us are retired. I am not, but I kind of feel like retired at sometimes, because I get to kind of do what I love to do a lot of times. So I feel like that, but mostly that. So that's nice that we have that. We're shooting all different camera brands. Some of us we've got Canon and Nikon are our big representation, and then we have Fuji and Sony as well. So that's awesome too, because I love to work with different people with different cameras. I shoot Canon, but I shoot Nikon, but I shoot Sony. I've shot it. I have all different types. So and then seems like Windows and Mac were kind of half and half. That's great too. And then the one that I like, it seems like we're all into using Lightroom, with the exception of some people using Luminar on one, but most people using Lightroom or Lightroom and Photoshop. That's great, because Lightroom is where I live as well. So, and then I launch into different things like Photoshop and other apps. And then, which we'll get to later on, it seems like most people are comfortable shooting in manual just by what you said, the camera mode you use the most. But we'll go over in a little bit, why we'll need to use manual for a lot of stuff that we're doing. All right. So let me just go through. I just want to do some business stuff. Let's see the sharing screen. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys. And I'll go ahead and share desktop. Oh, it just tells me on this. It's so silly. It tells me desktop 1 or desktop 2. Like I'd rather know which screen that is. All right, let's just go desktop 2. All right, and let's see. Are you seeing my presentation?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, awesome. So yeah, so we're just really quick here going over some business stuff. Just wanted to get you guys up to speed on this. We're talking about kind of overview things. So like what to expect, right? The Badlands. This is where we're going. The Badlands is awesome place. I've been there a bunch of times. Love the region. We are going at the perfect time of year for what we're trying to do. This is why we're doing this workshop when we're doing it. And why I'm bringing up this site is I'm trying to teach you guys, this is what the research I do to find places. So a great site is weatherspark.com. This is my long range planning site. When I'm looking at an area, I want to set myself up in an area that I know my chances of having clear skies and cloudy, not overcast skies are the maximum I can, because that gives me two things. Gives me Milky Way shots, because we need to have clearer or clear skies. We need to have mostly clear, partly cloudy, clear skies. But then at the same time, twilight and sunset and sunrise, I want those mostly cloudy, partly cloudy. I don't want it to be completely clear. So I'm looking at places where I can get those transitions. Now, what you'll find when you start researching this is a lot of the places you see photographs from tend to go along with these times of year, but you have to know what time of year to go somewhere. So
Yeah.
right now, this is going to be a great time of year. We're going to get those clearest days. You could see actually by that chart, July 23rd is the statistically clearest day in the Badlands, right?
Can I jump in
Now,
for a second?
yep.
I'm seeing your your presentation, your presenter view. So it's showing
okay.
clouds and they're pretty tiny.
All right, well, let me do this. Let me see if I switch
Yeah.
to this screen. No. Let me see if I desktop 1, desktop 2. What about now?
Yeah.
That's
There
better.
you go.
I better?
Yep.
All right. Yeah, so that's better. So now you can see that. So yeah, so we got the clearest time of year. So you're getting that, that gap. And that's what we want. We want this gap right here to be kind of small and that clear section to be very wide. Now, I have to tell you, there's a drawback to this. We're putting at the best time of year. It's hot in the Badlands that time of year. That's what we have to realize is it's going to be the hotter time of year, just how the weather works out in certain places. Now, the positive of that, we won't be shooting. We're not going to be shooting when there's peak sun, there's that peak heat. It's not good photography weather, and it's also not good weather for what we're going after, which is that twilight and night and sunset and sunrise. We're going after that time of day. It's still going to be warmer. So I just want everybody to know it's going to be warmer because of that time of year. So in that night, the temperatures will drop down a little bit. So you just want to bring something that you can layer on. It's something to just think about when you're in the Badlands. Here's a comparison just to show you the difference. Like if I'm in here in Tampa, Florida. So as you can see right now, it's perfect time right now for me to shoot the Milky Way in Florida, but I cannot shoot the Milky Way in Florida this whole week because I don't have clear skies. It's cloudy, it's rainy, it's overcast. I could get awesome Milky Way shots in Florida, but I can't because of clouds. So we're gonna have to contend with a little bit of this, but we're setting ourselves up for the best possible scenario to do this. And this is what I do long term is I plan out. And that's what I want you guys to learn out of this workshop is how to do this yourself. I don't want to just take you somewhere, have you make great pictures, and then you walk away. Like I want you to be able to do this stuff yourself because I feel like that's when you get that bug, you really get passionate about it, and you make those great images. So again, just looking at that comparison, It's going to be different for different times of year. That's why if you see Milky Way shots on my profile or my portfolio, my Instagram, any of that stuff that you might see, you're going to see shots from Florida in early March and April and February, and late like October, November, because those are the times when I can actually shoot it because it'll be clear enough for me to do so. All right, environment in the Badlands. You know, if you've never been before, you know, it's one of those things where it is a rocky yet very loose eroding soil. That's what's made this really cool formation out there. The other thing that's very unique to the Badlands is open hiking is permitted. Like, we can go anywhere. However, you have to be very careful. I mean, there's steep drop-offs, there's a lot of edges. You really want to stick to the paths. And this is even when you're getting off the trail, there'll be paths that you can see where people have walked. You kind of want to stay there because those have been getting compacted down. You start getting off those paths, it can get rocky and slippery real quick. I have to bring this up because people I know in certain areas don't have these. If you're coming from around, it sounds like most people are coming from near there or something, but there are rattlesnakes there. There's a prairie rattlesnakes there specifically. Some people get really worried about it. I've been up there a bunch, been out in that region a bunch. You just listen. If the earth is talking back to you loudly, don't go near it. You know, and that goes for about anything. If something's making sounds back to you, just don't go near it and figure out what it is. And then just make sure we don't reach into rocks, holes, or crevasses and stuff. That's usually where these prairie rattlesnakes really like to be. All right, and then clothing. Just again, if you've never been there, I suggest long pants because in the Badlands, I know it's going to be hot, and I said that it's going to be hot, but the rocks and the terrain, if you start getting in there, you'll really mark up your legs. I speak from experience. This is all a lot of stuff you'll learn in this workshop is because my legs were bleeding. I didn't, wear the right clothes. Like, I'm just going through the stuff that I made mistakes on. If somebody was concerned about the rattlesnakes, they do make things that you can put on your ankles that just help. I don't use them. I'm not worried about it, but I just have to because I think a lot of people there's always signs up in the Badlands for it. So I think that's another thing is they kind of like freak you out because they're putting it in front of you so much. But as long as you're careful, it won't be a problem. And again, most of the places we're going, we won't have that problem. I've only, again, in the Badlands in that area, I've only actually seen one, and I've only heard one that I could not locate where it was coming from. Just bringing a light jacket for the night, rain cover and umbrellas. This is another reason like this time of year is really nice is you get these like afternoon rainstorms that come through really quickly, but then it kind of dissipates into these really cool clouds that really catch the light towards sunset, and then they burn off at night. So it's like perfect. It's like you get like the perfect, and then it cools everything down. It's nice. Having some sturdy footwear, hiking boots at least. You don't want to be slipping around in this stuff, especially after a rain. They start getting very slick then. All this wash off gets very slip. Just making sure if you're sensitive to sun, hat, sunscreen, bug spray, that kind of stuff. All right, so let's get into like the fun stuff. It's typical schedule. This is probably going to be very different for you guys, and this is why I want to bring this up. We're going to be shooting early morning and late at night. It's going to be waking up early, coming back and having breakfast, and then breaking for the day, and then coming back and shooting towards the evening. So it's one of those things where we have to be very concerned about conserving our energy and our sleep, right? We want to make sure we're conserving our energy and our sleep, because at the end of the day, if we're shooting during these times, we don't want to be expending energy doing other stuff. So that's another thing I like to tell people up front is like, I wouldn't plan a lot of excursions or a lot of adventures during that time, because you really want to be editing, backing up stuff, sleeping, taking a nap. But honestly, this schedule is very similar to my schedule when I'm going out to photograph like professionally. It's very similar. Like we are going out when the good light is, and we're coming back, and then we're going out when the good light is again. And but the end of the day, we're starting to push it because we're going to get into that Milky Way time. And that peak Milky Way time is right after twilight. So it's nice this time of year because we're going to get to be able to shoot sunset, shoot that peak twilight blue hour, and then walk right into the Milky Way, rather than at certain times of the year earlier, we'd have to actually go back and then come back at like 2 or 3 a.m. Now it's just right after, we're going right into it. So just showing you some, stuff of like what we're gonna, like the areas like you've seen. Here's a shot just from my phone from just a couple days ago, or about a half a month ago. We were there. There's my daughter standing up. You can see like there's all these like really interesting rock formations. But then what we can do is we can line that up with the Milky Way, and that's actually the same spot, just a different shot at the time of the Milky Way. So again, looking at that, I wanted to go over a couple other things. If you've never been there before or never seen it, it is this rocky terrain, very similar to that. This is one where when we were there, this is probably the highest, I think, or maybe hike or climb, because one of the things I saw in a lot of people's surveys, we were talking about like, hey, we want to do, I can't do a long hike, can't do a long climb. I wanted to show you, like, this is probably the farthest. So this is my wife up here, and we went along this ridge, and then you can see this path here that's the path, but that's about as far as we've went as far as a climb or something like that. So it's not something where it's very hard to do.
I'm not.
And that's
able-
actually
Seeing
the
your picture, Rick.
We
oh
can't,
no.
We're just seeing like the whole.
Oh,
There you go.
There.
I was using the wrong screen because I was
Ah.
back on the other one. All right. So
There.
yeah, so there's the Badlands. You got these are just shots from my cell phone. Looking at it, that's what you're gonna see. Like, these weird rock formations with grass or different colors. But I was saying that this is a shot of, that was my wife up there. This is kind of the longest or steepest hill that I think we would do or climb. So it wouldn't be anything crazy. Now, every place we'll go, because I noticed on the survey, again, we're talking about that, every place we'll go, there'll be places that we can shoot that aren't at, like, if, hey, I can't make that 20, 30 foot climb. That's fine. There'll be another place, that we'll be able to shoot very close. Or I don't feel comfortable making that, 30-foot dip down. Okay, well, there's always places to go. So it'll be definitely one of those things where mattering on your comfort level, we'll still be able to do great stuff. Like I was showing before with that shot of the Milky Way with my daughter, that was 50 feet from our car. 50 feet. So you're not going far. And you can see, like, that's what the kind of terrain or the kind of climbs we're talking about. It's getting up to hills. This is our Jeep here, just walking up, walking down, very simple stuff. That's kind of that's the hill that I was talking about climbing. And then the other thing we're going to be doing is a lot of this stuff where we're going to be planning out our shots. So we'll get to that a little bit later, but we're going to be using an app called, I'll be using an app called Photo Pills for that. Let's see. Yeah, we'll be doing a lot of stuff at this time of day, like the twilight time. Here's a typical scenario of what we'd be dealing with, again, about access. There's a lot of these paths. If there is anything kind of treacherous, there's these paths. But then there's areas where you can actually go down into the Badlands. We'll be able to shoot from not only the path if we wanted to, because there's spots that I know on the pass, but then if you're comfortable getting down again into the Badlands. So again, every location we should be able to, if it's something you're not comfortable with, have another place that you could shoot that is not as hilly or rocky or climby or But again, nothing strenuous, nothing really hard, because at the end of the day, like we really don't need to make it strenuous or hard to get straight shots of the Badlands. Is what I love about it. Other places that I've taken workshops, one of the places, and I remember telling everybody up front, like, these are hard locations to get to, and people still, I had 3 guys still wanted to go, but then once we did it, they started, being like, I had no idea, because I was telling them that's 3 miles out through no terrain. Like, we were out in New Mexico at a Badlands over there, and it's 3 miles out for one shoot, 3 miles back in the middle of the night. Like here, like I was saying, it's 50 feet, it's 100 yards. It's very accessible to get cool shots. All right, so let's talk about the gear. So looking at the gear, it's really simple what we really need. And I've seen the list. I think everybody on the list has everything we would probably need here. I don't think there was any red flags. You need a camera, a tripod with a ball head. We all know that. The 2 things we'll need as far as lenses, we need a fast wide angle lens, something that's going to capture a bunch of light in a short amount of time. 14 to 24 is the range that I would say that most people want to be able to cover, somewhere in there. Again, with the 14 to 24, I'm talking on a full frame sensor. So if you're on a crop frame sensor, you might have a lens, for example, that's a 10 to, I think Canon makes like a 10 to 20. Well, that's actually a 14 to 20, or it's a 14 to 26. So if you're on a crop sensor, which I know a couple of you are, it is going to be different, but you just want to make sure that you have that f2.8 lens, like something in that run. If you don't have an f2.8 lens, it's just going to be really hard to capture light from the Milky Way. And that's where I would suggest renting at that point, is going in just for that week, renting an f2.8 or less lens. If you guys ever needed some, just get in contact with me. I can tell you, like, given your camera brand and your budget and all that stuff, like what lens I would recommend, because Sony has a certain lens, Nikon has a certain lens, Canon has a certain lens. There's different ones that work better for this stuff. And then telephoto lens, you really want for those twilight shots or those sunset shots to still have something that's got a little reach, so you can get in and kind of get in on those mountains and those layers of the washout, the changes in the elevation. So having a telephoto lens, I usually will bring my 100 to 400, but a 70 to 200, 100 to 400. Thing that's nice is there's usually wildlife, and the wildlife comes out in early morning and late at night. So we're also out there when wildlife was probably be out there. And that's another reason why that 100 to 400 or something like that works really well, because then we can still get wildlife if we want to capture that. Then having a way to trigger your camera, be that a cable release. Some people use their app that connects to their phone. You just want some way to trigger your camera where you don't have to be touching it and moving it around a lot. And then a must, because again, if you've never done this, you have to have a headlamp. It's like, that's the one piece of gear that, like, I have backups of. You always want a headlamp. It's safety. You want to get out of the car, be able to see where you're going. Then when you get there, you want to be able to change that. And you always want one with the red mode, because the red mode, once you get out to your camera, you start setting anything up, you turn it to a red light. The reason you turn it to a red light is that's keeps your night vision. The red light won't really blast your eyes to where it'll keep your night vision. Well, that's going to help us when we start composing, we start focusing. So having that headlamp, and then you're going to get to a point where you actually don't use the headlamp. So you're wanting to adjust your eyes down as you go, but then be safe with it. So, and again, having a headlamp that you're wearing that you could be free with your hands, that's 100% an essential piece of gear. Now I'll get into the unessential pieces of gear, but the stuff we'll go over. So if you want and you have a star tracker, I will have my star trackers. We'll be able to one night really focus on using a star tracker, learning what that does to help us with our Milky Way landscape images. You know, it's not, again, a required piece of gear, but it's just something that I think if you want to learn it, it's a great tool to learn. And I'll have my couple that we could use, but if anybody has one, wants to learn, great place. The other thing is, this is a great opportunity. We're going to be working on panos, that if you have something like, I have a nodal rail, which just moves my basically my ball head or my pivot point back to my no parallax point, which again, this all sounds very confusing. We confused everybody by calling it a nodal rail when it wasn't even a nodal rail. So that's what photographers do. We like to overcomplicate things. But at the end of the day, all it's doing is moving your lens back. So when you pivot the camera, it's keeping it to where it's steady, so you don't have the stitching problems and you don't have parallax between 2 points. But again, it's not a required piece. I'll have mine, and then you guys will be able to try it out if you ever wanted to. And then another thing that I'll bring is a panning head. I like a panning head that could pan straight across. Another thing I'd be bringing, but if you guys wanted to, light painting gear, things that we can use to light paint. I'll have mine that we'll be able to all use. I have actually a setup that I'll show you guys that we'll all be able to shoot at the same time and get the same shot while light painting, which we actually did at the photo shootout last year, which everybody was really thought was cool. And then it is the muggy season, so I will pack a bunch of hand warmers. I'll use those actually just to go over my lens if we're out there shooting and we're starting to pass to that dew point. And when we start getting to the dew point, it probably will not happen. We probably will not need them where we'll be. But it's my habit to bring them because we are in the muggy season for that area. So next thing, download photo pills. You definitely want to use this app. I know this is it costs money too. It's $10. It's the best $10 you will ever spend. This app is a lifesaver. It really is the planning app. I will be using this all the time and showing you stuff all the time. It shows us where Twilight's going to be, when Twilight's going to be, where the sun's going to be, where the moonlight's going to come from, where the moon's going to be. It shows us where the Milky Way is going to be. And they actually just hold it up and see on the phone, like I was showing before, where you just see where the Milky Way is going to be. And then it'll even tell us things like the MPF rule, which is it'll let us know. We go into an app, we're going to tell it what camera we have and what f-stop we're shooting at. And it'll tell us exactly how many seconds we can expose our image before the stars trail. Well, that's an invaluable thing. And $10, I remember sitting down with the developer of the app and saying, I really think I would have paid $100 for it, because it really that is probably my number one app for using. It just tells you all this stuff. The great thing about it is it'll help us too with scouting locations in the future. You'll be able to then scout locations before you even leave your house. I plan shoots before I even leave my house, and I know where I'm going to be. I know where I'm going to stand. I know where the Milky Way is going to come up. I know what time exactly it's going to be. I actually just did that. Somebody talked about Devil's Tower. I was just in Devil's Tower a few weeks ago doing a Milky Way image, and I knew exactly the minute that I wanted the image to take the shot. Like I was waiting just for, it was 12:50 or it was 12:32. So I was waiting for 12:32 exactly. What was funny is I showed up, 20 other photographers there, which I've never had any location where there has been any astrophotographers there besides maybe one other person. 20 photographers there. Every one of them left at about 11 o'clock because there was a cloud bank that moved right over the Milky Way as it was rising. I looked at my next app that I'm going to show you and saw that cloud bank's going away in an hour. They all packed up. I stayed the hour and a half and got the shot. So and that's where we want to be able to do that kind of stuff. And this is the Nest X app. Is download this app. It's called Astro, right? It's Android or iOS as well. They also have a website as well. But this app is going to let us be able to see everything we need to know. And actually, I would even argue this app has become my go-to app for actually figuring out sunrise and sunset conditions, because it shows me things like it's going to show us the cloud cover that's going to be in a certain area, the visibility we're going to have in the sky, and then the seeing we're going to have in the sky, which are all three separate things. Just because we don't see clouds doesn't mean the atmosphere isn't going to be thick enough for us to capture really good detail. So being able to see all that, seeing wind directions, and then we were just talking about that temperature and the dew point. We're going to be able to see through this app where those temperatures and dew points are converging. In fact, if you look at the screen here, this is a shot from my location that I'm in Tampa. This afternoon, I was taking a screen capture of this, and you can see tonight, it looks like sometime in the morning, the dew points at Tampa are going to cross. Well, if I was out shooting like a time lapse tonight of like stars, my camera would just dew up and I get no shots unless I was to heat it up. And that's where we're going to look at these things. So I want to give you guys some homework exercises besides downloading those apps, right? I want us to be able to know our camera. There's less light at night, not only for photos, right? But for the buttons and the dials and the settings on your camera. You want to practice in the dark the next couple of weeks. And I don't mean like it has to be like pitch dark, but practice in a very, very low light setting to where you need to take some shots. It's really going to help you. This is actually the best thing I did for my night photography, was really just training myself to know my camera, my settings, where my buttons and dials were, where the focus ring, where the focus dials were for on and off, just having that in memory and knowing where those settings are. It's very invaluable. The next one over the next couple of weeks is make sure you know how to manually focus. For a lot of what we're doing, we're going to be in low light scenarios. Excuse me. For a lot of what we're doing, we're going to be in low light scenarios. Automatic focus doesn't work good in low light scenarios. And in fact, I never shoot a Milky Way shot on an automatic setting. Now, if you watch some of this educational training we do, during the daytime, I would never tell somebody to do this. Our cameras are so good during the daytime that I would never tell you to turn it off manual focus. I wouldn't even tell you to shoot it in manual during the daytime. But during night, when it's low light like this, we need to know manual focus, and we need to know how to set up manual mode, right? We need to know how to do this on our cameras, because this is going to be crucial, that we need to know how these things work. And then we need to know, because at the end of the day, what we're going to start out with, and this is shoot one, typical settings. We're going to go with the typical settings. We're going to go into manual mode. So we want to know how we get into manual mode. We want to know how to dial in 20 seconds, f2.8, ISO 6400. We want to set our camera to the widest setting. We want to be able to manually white balance our camera to a certain Kelvin temperature. And in the Badlands, I tend to be at 3600 Kelvin. Now, it'll matter. Again, I'll tell you when we get out there, we'll start going maybe 3700 Kelvin or 3500 Kelvin. And then we're going to manual focus. We need to know how to manual focus. We're going to start at that infinity, and then we're going to start learning tricks to adjust to the stars. So you need to know how to do that manual focus. And then for our DSLR users, we need to know one other thing, and we're going to need to know how to do mirror lockup. Now, if you don't know what mirror lockup is, if you look in your viewfinder and you're using a mirrorless camera you're going to see an electronic viewfinder. You don't have to worry about mirror lockup. But if you're using a camera that flips a mirror up and slams a mirror up like any DSLR, we're going to want to know how to basically flip up that mirror and have that mirror hold there until we take the shot. That will give us time for our camera to flip up that, settle down our tripod from wiggling a little bit, and then take the exposure. So these are all things that we have to consider, but that's gonna be day one, shoot one. We got to be able to do manual mode. We got to be able to do manual white balance, and we got to be able to do manual focus. And we have to be able to do this stuff in low light scenarios. So that's what I'm saying. In the next couple weeks, practice that stuff. Get good with knowing your camera in those low light scenarios and know how to dial in settings like that. And it will just set us up to be able to focus on the stuff that matters when we get out there. And that is the composition, the framing, the techniques for shooting it. Once we get by the settings and the buttons and dials, then we have fun. So it's really getting to that point. So now I wanted to open it up. I know we got some time for Q&A. I know there's a lot of information there. There's a lot of stuff we were talking about, but just any questions you might have. And then also if there's any questions that you have that come up, just saving them, and we'll be able to answer questions, any questions you have via email or anything like that. All right.
One thing I had, Eric, with the gear to remember is what will seem really obvious, but your batteries, to make sure for your wireless remotes and stuff that you have your backup batteries and they're all charged and whatnot, are fresh. You don't want to get out there and not have that working.
Yes, very good point. Yes, and I take that for granted. I think my wife makes fun of me because like in my Jeep there is a Canon battery charger installed in the inverter, and then there's one in the back, and they're always charging batteries because I always am afraid I'm going to be somewhere and not have a battery. So like, it's sick. All right, so any questions that anybody would have? Let's see. David has his hand raised. David, what do you got?
Yeah, Eric, I know you're like me. You're on 6'2". You're what, 6'4"?
6'3".
Yeah. Well, I think I'm actually shrinking now, but that's neither here nor there. But I have a tripod that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to bring. And so what tripod do you use? Because everything I see today has got the center column and stuff. And
well, so that's a good question. Good question. Hold on. Let me see. It's right here. So this is what I'll bring. And it is my beefiest, heaviest. It's my really right stuff tripod that I've had for 20 years. The thing will not break. I've taken this everywhere, and that's what I'm taking. Why do I take that? Because it's the heaviest, sturdiest, lightweight tripod I have. Like it is, but again, it was ridiculously expensive when I bought it. But I've had it for 20 years, so it's coming like it's a good investment, right? But you really want something that's just very sturdy, but yet again lightweight. That's why the carbon fiber is nice and stuff. But the center column you're talking about, the reason you don't want a center column, the minute we start putting that center column up, it just starts shaking a little bit more and a little bit more. And if you have a center column, all I'll tell you is just keep the center column down and try to focus your compositions on whatever height that is.
Yeah, this is, let's see if I can get it in center column. But yeah, like I've got this.
So you have pretty much, it's pretty much the same thing. The reason you're saying is that's bulky, but here's my thing. It's like, I've taken this on every airplane. I've taken this everywhere. Like,
yeah.
Now, the one thing you do with it is if you take off the ball head in this section always gets on a plane. this
Okay,
section
that's
sometimes.
what I was gonna, that was my next
So
question.
if you take this off, this section usually always gets on a plane, and that's because this could go on my back. That's what I'll do. I just take this off, it goes on my back. But yeah, I have to bring the heaviest, sturdiest, lightweight tripod I have because it's going to give me the best images. We're shooting,
Yeah.
you got to realize we're shooting we're shooting 20 seconds, right? Or something
Right.
around there. Any movement, it causes our image to be blurry. And
Yeah, I was
we're
just
also in an area where you're going to have wind at that time of year. But I mean, the nice part is it's not the windiest time of year, but it's still, you're going to have wind.
Yeah, I was worried that this wouldn't go in, but if you're saying the one that you have, which is about the same as this one,
Yeah.
it
As long
is
as you take off
traveling
the
just-
ball heads. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely does, because the ball head is what usually sticks out, that you can't get it under your seat if you're in a small, because I've even been in small commuter planes and it's been fine.
Okay, saves me about $800.
All right. Any other questions anybody would have?
What
Sorry.
what time of in the afternoon on that first day do you anticipate that we'll all meet?
Yeah, I would think on that first day, what we'd like to do is start off that like late afternoon class where we're just doing that like 4 p.m., 5 p.m. class, and kind of from there on. And then we go right into the class, dinner, shoot, come back, you know.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Eric, what nodal rail or padding head would you recommend?
Oh yeah. So, well, with the nodal rail, like honestly, the one I've had for years is like it's off Amazon and it's like $24, or you could buy the Really Right Stuff one, which is really nice, but it's $170. And it's like
Right.
it's a piece of metal, you know, like
Yeah.
like I will spend money. Like I have that Really Right Stuff tripod, so I don't want to like totally dog it. Like I'll spend money if it's really good, but like it's a piece of metal. So like the one I have is actually it's a newer, I think is the brand. It's NEWWER nodal rail, but it's like the 200 millimeter one. And then now again, they have like B&H has their house brand that's around that. But what again, all that is it's a piece of metal that adjusts your lens back, so that way when you're panning, you don't have those like weird gaps in the corners. You're panning in the same parallel, and that's what's hard about this is they're called nodal rails, but they're not nodal rails. They're actually, well, they're used as nodal rails, but they're used in photography as no parallax points. It's a no parallax point. It's not really
Okay.
a nodal point, and that's what that we used to call it, a nodal point, and then engineers at the camera manufacturers told the people that were making them, no, that isn't the nodal point, and it got all weird. And
Yeah.
so,
But
and
if
then
I-
as
if
far
I
as the panning head,
Yeah.
I have a video head that I use. I have a video ball head that I
Okay.
use for that. The nodal rail is something you have to do that. The panning head you don't have to have. You see
Yeah.
what I'm saying there? Like
I could do
the
it.
nodal rail I can't get around. Like you can't replace what a nodal rail does with something else. The
Right.
panning head compared to a ball head, it's not going to be that much different, as long as your ball head has ability to unhinge at the bottom and move 360 degrees, which most ball heads do, you know.
Yeah.
The other thing that I use is a thing called it's a platy ball. It's a ball head by Platypod, and that has the panning head at the top of it, which is what I like. The pivot point is at the top of a platy ball, which that's what I'll have my platy ball, and I'll have my
I was actually
video
looking at
fluid
that
head.
particular ball head, and it looked pretty interesting to me.
let's
How long
see.
have you had it?
I had it. I had it before it came out. Let me see, because I helped them test it out.
I think
So
some
I had a
people
full
are just getting-
disclosure. Like,
Yeah.
no,
Some people are just getting them
I,
right, I think.
this isn't the one I tested out, but yeah, this is what it is. It's
Yeah.
this ball head. But what's nice about it, like I said, is up top, I had the ability to spin here rather than spinning down at the bottom.
Right.
Which, I mean, but then really the selling point of this is that it has the trigger lock and unlock. So you're locking and unlocking with one hand. You know, again, it's one of those things where it's nice. Like the nodal rail, definitely can't replace that. If you had a ball head and you're like, oh, should I buy the Platy ball? It's like, nah, but if like you're in the market for one, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, okay.
But I wouldn't go out of my way.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
So if I call B&H and tell them I have this really right stuff ball head, they'd be able to set me up with some recommendations, right? It doesn't have to be like the expensive one.
No, like you know, what is one of my friends just bought this one, and it's just, it looks like the same as it's called a Sunway Photo. Actually, the model number I just looked on B&H is DMP-200R, which is just there. And that's what it is. It's a 200 millimeter nodal rail with the really red stuff clamp, like, you know, the Arca Swiss clamp,
Arca
all that
Swiss,
stuff.
okay.
Yeah.
And it's Sunway, you said?
Yeah, it's called Sunway Photo. It's the
Okay.
I mean, there's other ones though. There's this Desmond one that's $24, you know, and then there's, I mean, but then like I said, then I looked right there. Yeah. So see, the really right stuff one is $160.
But I don't need
I
that,
will
right?
say, and this is the whole thing, like really right stuff is the best. Like if you want the
Yeah.
best stuff, it's always the really right stuff.
Mhm.
But it's $160. That one's 40. I'm like, well, if 4 of those break, I could have had one of these, but
Right.
I'm telling you, I've had that one, and it's a metal rail that clamps down. I mean, the likelihood of me breaking it is like way greater than my tripod, which is 20 years old, you know.
Right.
So I just don't.
Okay.
There's certain things, I'll spend money on gear, but I am frugal. I guess that's what it is. I spend money on gear, but I'm frugal. Like, I hate spending money on stuff that's like you get it and you're like, it's a piece of metal,
Right.
with lines on it.
Well, we should bring those, right? The nodal rail.
Yeah. If you've got one, definitely. I mean, it helps with the panos, definitely with the panos,
Yep.
because you really want, and that's why I just talk about, like, you want that wide angle lens, because what we're going to do when we get to the panos is we're going to turn our camera vertically. Now, that is another thing I didn't put in there, but I take for granted, is I always have an L bracket on my camera.
Mhm.
I live with an L bracket on my camera. Like, I physically attach, I have it cranked down. The L bracket never comes off, because the L bracket is like my life. Like, it's just quickly, like I'm shooting a vertical shot, and then I want to shoot a pano. I just flip it up, and I'm doing, and then that's what I'm saying, at the Milky Way, we're going to do panos where it's vertical like that, very wide, and getting the whole sky and getting that arc, right? And that's that classic like Milky Way arc. Well, we have to do that. I mean, it's going to be the whole sky. We've got to turn it on its side. And if you don't have an L bracket, when you turn the camera on its side, you've got to put your ball head to the side, and then your camera's like hanging off the side and it's pulling your camera this way, where an L bracket just allows you to just put it right over the center of that. Like, L bracket's another one though. You could buy the really right stuff one, which I've got some of them, but I don't buy them anymore, because I can buy, like, I got a Leo Photo one, is the one I got from my camera. It was a Leo Photo was the brand. And I swear, like, they went to Really Right Stuff's factory and like got the plans and said, we're going to build it for $50 rather than $250,
Mhm.
you know. But I mean, it's a piece of metal that attaches to your camera. The point being, an L bracket is very helpful. And
Right.
you can get L brackets, like universal ones, for $20. And they're really cheap. Like you can go on the Amazon, just type in universal L bracket, and it's going to come up and they'll be like 25, 30 bucks if you really just want it. But an L bracket is definitely something besides the headlamp that, yeah, definitely need. All right. It's not a requirement, but it helps a lot.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you.
Oh, Eric,
Mhm.
I have a
Yes.
question. Will we
Yes.
be covering stitching of panels and stuff like that?
Yes, and that's what we'll go over that. Not we'll talk about how to, on the field, how to shoot that, because we're half of a pano, like you have to shoot it so you can stitch it. So half of doing a pano is out in the field, and then half in the computer, right? But yeah, we'll go over both. Yes, we'll do the shooting it out in the field, and then how do we then take that into post and put that together? Because it's super easy if we shoot it right. I think that's why people get so frustrated with that stuff. It's like, it's super easy if you do it the right way. Like the other thing we'll talk about, and we'll talk about blending exposures. So we'll do a twilight exposure and then a Milky Way exposure. How do we blend these two? It's super easy if you shoot it right. If you shoot it wrong, it's super hard, or you see the stuff that people put out there, it's super fake. It's super, it just never happened in real life.
Right.
Like, now that's one thing that I won't do is, you know, I am a purist a little bit with that stuff. Like, we were out actually shooting, and there was this lady who was teaching a workshop. I've never ran into somebody teaching a workshop. We've been out shooting, but this was like the first time we were out doing like dark sky stuff, and she was showing us like shots, and then we looked it up afterwards, and the shot that what we shot from that location, we went back to the computer, and then I saw her shot, and her shot wasn't possible. Like the shot that she was showing for her workshop and showing for their people to like come do, like she had composited in a pano over a shot that was a 14 millimeter shot. And it's like that. Now, see, that's just me. Like, I don't like doing that stuff. I like to like keep it like, I don't like putting Milky Ways where they shouldn't be, or putting stuff like that. So, but we'll go over how to shoot it right to be realistic to, hey, we shot an image an hour ago at twilight, then we shot another image at night. How do we put these things together so that the way the foreground looks twilight, the Milky Way looks twilight, and they're able to come together without it making it look fake? And because we're not going to be moving the camera, we're not going to be moving anything, we're going to plan out our composition in the beginning, that we're not going to have those problems that we would have if we didn't do it the right way. Cool. All right. Let's see what
For the
else.
post-processing, Eric, is there any software you recommend we put on the computers before we get there?
You know, post-processing, you could do everything with Lightroom or Photoshop. You would need Lightroom and sometimes a Photoshop or something that you could do layers. You could do everything in Lightroom though, except for things like blending. If you start getting into blending multiple exposures, you got to step over to Photoshop.
Right.
But the nice part is if you have Lightroom, you have Photoshop, because in order to have Lightroom, you got the photography plan, which means you got Lightroom and Photoshop. So I make sure Lightroom and Photoshop, or an app like, I think somebody said they were using On1, like On1 will do layers and do all that stuff. So, I mean, that'd be fine too. You just got to have something that you could do blending of multiple exposures. And then as far the other thing, I mean, I use, and that's what we'll talk about, is noise reduction software. There's a few of them out there. I've used all of them. They're all of the ones that I use are great. There's not one that's better or worse. I mean, there's some that they're better for this type of image, or they're better for that type of image. But if you have Topaz denoise is a great plugin that will want to will want to use at some point in our workflow, either that are on one no noise, or DxO pure raw, or they also call it DxO Photo Lab. They have a noise reduction as well in theirs. All three of those, if you had anyone, all three of those, they're all three great. They'll all be three that we can use, but we can run noise reduction through Photoshop and Lightroom. It's just never going to be as good as these applications are. So that's the other thing that I use a lot in my Milky Way workflow, is that noise reduction. But that's it. It's really Photoshop, Lightroom, and noise reduction. All right. Any other questions? I know we're hitting that hour we were telling you guys, so, but I want to get to everybody's questions if anybody's got any questions. But again, if you have any questions that come up between now and then, you can always email us. We'll get you your answers. And then at our next meeting, that's where really we'll start doing the planning. I want to take you guys through like how you plan out, because we'll be a week out. We'll actually be able to start forecasting what the weather is going to look like, forecasting where we might want to change up locations based on the weather. We're going to do that. This is all about, again, learning how that process of making these images happen. And I think once you see that and able to replicate that, you'll be able to go out no matter where you are, even if you're in Iowa, and get great shots.
And I'll send out that Zoom link for that's Tuesday, July 19th, 1 week out. I'll send that tonight or tomorrow. I didn't want to confuse it with tonight's Zoom thing. So Eric, did you want to?
And that'll be our first thing too when we get on the ground. There is going to be first class. We're going to look at the weather again, and we're going to look at the scenarios again, because we've got to start as it gets closer. It's going to get even better, because as we get, and then hour by hour, when like I said, if I was out at Devil's Tower, I refresh that app, like it's hour by hour. I can see like right what's happening, updates, and it's great because we can really start planning out the shots. All right.
Eric, did you want to mention anything about the culmination, the Friday thing?
Well, no, I think we've got something on Friday that came to get, I've been working on it, we've been working on it, and I think it's going to be really special, where we're going to be able to build on everything we've been doing in the week and then take it even to the next level and do something really unique. So it'll definitely be something to look forward to.
Yeah.
And that's what I want you guys, like, this is all building up. First night, we're going to work on just getting great shots of the Milky Way and not putting too much effort into all the other techniques and panos, time lapses, light painting, doing all multiple exposure blending. We want to save that for the next night. And then the next night we'll be doing some of that. And then the next night we'll be doing, and then we'll lead into, like Jay's talking about, where we bring that all together. And we've got something where we got a location that we got that I didn't think we were going to get, but we could get this location. So it'll be really cool.
And then a couple weeks after we're done, we'll have a kind of a reunion Zoom again. And I think, Eric, wasn't that where you were going to?
Yeah, we're going to go over editing. We'll do a lot of the final editing, because when we're out on location, we'll do during the day. Like if you guys want to do any editing, like we were talking about, I will be there. Jay will be there. We'll be able to help, and I'll be able to help you at all times. I'm there, so we'll be able to help. But I know once you get home, sometimes there's like other things that come up and stuff that comes up. So we'll have a meeting a couple weeks later where we see if there's any problems or anything we need to work through with our post-processing.
Do you have a list of locations that you're looking at?
I do have a list of locations that we would go, yes. And that's where at the end of the day, like I know that I have certain shots that work well for what we'll be doing on that night, and certain shots will work. But again, what we'll do at that point is next one we'll start looking at how we're going to map that out based on the weather.
So you'll.
Because it really does change. Like, it's amazing how you can go to one side and shoot certain things and you'll have different cloud cover and different conditions than just 30 miles away. And again, because 27 miles basically that's when you start getting that difference. So you can go one side to the other.
So that's what we'll go through in a couple of weeks.
Yes. Yeah. And the one thing on a workshop like this, you guys don't have to worry about, which is great, is we do know the locations, but we want to teach you why those locations. And that's really what we'll go into is, like, for example, why this location? Well, a lot of certain locations are Milky Way lining up, or the sunset being off center, or we want the clouds to have the color over here in the twilight. So, but I wanted to go over that so you guys understand that that's why you pick certain locations. That's why you go certain places. You know, a lot of people, again, with the Milky Way, they'll look at it and go, well, I would love to shoot. Well, I don't know if it's a bad example. Perfect example is I'd love to shoot in Iceland. I'd love to shoot the Milky Way in Iceland, because I would love. Iceland's beautiful. Love Iceland. Great country, beautiful country. You can't shoot the Milky Way there. Why? The core doesn't really come above the horizon. It's so
not there.
high
Yeah.
that you don't get the core popping above the horizon. So any shot that you see the core way above the horizon over Iceland, what is it? It's fake. It's not real. It's just a fake shot, because it will never happen in real life. So, I mean, that's what we have to learn. We have to learn, like, because that's hard. The hard problem with shooting the Milky Way is understanding where you can and can't shoot, and when you can and can't shoot. That's actually, I think, probably the thing that trips up most people. But you know what app really helps with that? Photo pills. And that's why photo pills is so important, because that's the app that will tell me, will that work? What time of year it will work, and what conditions I need for it to work. And I've got a list. You guys see, like, I got a list of places that I want to shoot, places that I have shot, like because you're just looking like, oh, I've got places in Florida that I've never shot before. They're marked. Like, I've got a place in the Everglades that I've been trying forever, but it's like every time of year that it comes up that there's this 2 months that I could do it, every year it's just clouds and I just cannot get this shot. But I've seen one shot from here and I'm like, I could do better. Like, there's something there. But I just can't get to it. I just can't get a clear size. But that's the whole thing, is like, once I understood years ago, like what conditions it was, I put on a list and I go, if it's basically, if from August to September, I can get to this place and there's clear skies during a low or no moon, I'll be able to do it. And every time in August and September, what's happening in Florida? It's like hurricanes, tropical storms, it's clouds, I can't do it. So, but that's in the next thing. We'll go over a lot of that.
Awesome.
Let me ask you this, Eric. So when you see a good Milky Way, especially a panel, you can recognize the hemisphere it came from, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you can see by the angles too, and what latitudes you can start.
So
seeing
you'll
latitudes.
never get an Australian Milky Way, even in a great place like the United States. And I think that's what a lot of people in camera clubs, they don't understand this.
Yep.
And it's pretty amazing that you have to shoot the part of the world you live in.
You do. And well, that's the other thing too, of like, that's the other reason why this area works around this time too. The Badlands doesn't work late season or early season because, again, it's so farther north. I can start shooting in Florida on February 13th. Like, I've shot as early as February 13th. Like, if you try to do that up in the Badlands, like, it's just never going to be there. Like, you're never going to give above the haze. It's just going to be basically that, like, it'll look like atmospheric. It won't look like anything. But I could be shooting like the full core all the way up in February, and it's crazy, but it's because I'm so much closer to the equator. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, I'm really looking forward to it. I know Jay, I know you're looking forward to it as well. And I really I think we'll have a blast. It's going to be a fun time. I always love being able to focus on photography as well. You know, this is like, and that's really going into this. We're focused on photography. We're focused on making great images. And we're also focused on having fun as well. But, you know, we want to make great images. That's what we're wanting to do here.
The one really fun thing for me in doing these different ones too is the little community that you build from just hanging out that many hours together over several days. It really becomes fun.
Oh, yeah.
So
Cool.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for everybody's
forward to it.
time. I appreciate
thanks
it.
for tuning in. I've recorded this, so once I get it fixed up and put on YouTube, I can send the link to, so if you want to watch it back to catch some of the slides that Eric had about what was those settings that he talked about, or those apps or whatever. So I just downloaded the
Yeah, and a lot of this stuff, again, I'm going to drill into the head, so it's
Yeah.
going to be the same stuff kind of repeated over. Like I'm going to say photo pills a lot, or I'm going to say let's check our weather a lot, or you know, it's just going to be the same, because it is the same things kind of repeated.
Should we start a board that so the rest of us can make bets on how many times Eric says photo pills between now and then?
Can we take a bet now that most of us already have it?
Yeah.
I hope so. I hope so.
And the
So, you know, I mean,
atmospheric one
certain
I've already
things like
downloaded.
that, it's I mean, now I could say if you have another app, there's like the photographers and Ferris, there's that too. I mean, it's fine too. I'm just a photo pills fan. It's just what I use. Like I'm just a fan of it. Like the other apps work too, but I'm
It
just a
might be
fan of it.
helpful as a group if everybody had it, so when you're explaining it, you
Yep.
can learn about it on your own device.
Yep.
And that Astroferic thing is a free app. I couldn't find it at
Yep,
first. I was
free.
typing in atmospheric, and it's Astroferic.
Atrophic. Well, that is actually a new one, which is nice. That's why I recommend that one, because it is free. Because
Yeah.
I used to have to pay for a couple different ones to do the same thing that one did. But it's all pulling in a website. So it's all pulling in data actually from this. It's from Canadian astronomy, basically the government. And they do all this like so they're pulling in the data from another site. So I could always go to that site, but I like doing the app. I love having the app, and it just comes up. It's my geolocation and just pops up, but it's free. So it's so super easy.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
See you in a couple weeks.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
see you in a couple of
Yeah.
weeks.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right.
You
Thanks.
too.
Good night.